Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Recovery Connection podcast, episode number 3. We're just cruising along. I just want to make a few announcements before we get into this and introduce our guest. You can listen to our podcast a week from today on Spotify and Google and all whatever you listen to your podcast on. I thank you for joining us for our live podcast. Starting next month, bi-weekly, we're going to be alternating between what we've been doing, which is talking to community leaders and people who are running great organizations in this city. And then after 2 more weeks, then we're going to be talking to people who are in recovery and who love this recovery community in Ottawa and what their stories look like. So that'll be coming up next month. And our next guest for October 14th is Kate Burkholder Harris from the Alliance to End Homelessness, and I can't wait to talk to her. And then remember, after this episode, we will have a question and answer period. I'm hoping that we're going to have lots of good questions. And that's all the announcements I got to make. So we've got all the goo out of the way. And I want to introduce Keltie Davidson from Capital City Mission. Now, I will tell everyone before we get going that you and I know each other. We've known each other for how long now?
5-6
6
years.
years, yeah. And at Capital City Mission and Jericho Road, we worked together on Coldest Night of the Year. That's not any secret to anybody. And so I'm going to allow you to just tell everybody who you are, chief bottle washer and dishwasher at Capital City Mission.
All of it,
All of it?
That's right.
So what do you do there?
Do you want me to describe Capital City Mission first briefly, what do I do?
Yeah.
So I'm our executive director, but we're a very small organization. So I'm also a frontline worker. I'm chaplain. I'm many things depending on the day and what's going on.
Good. And
Yeah.
how long you been there?
I started volunteering just out of high school, so 16 years ago. And then
Wow.
I've been, I guess I'm probably going into my 10th year on staff.
Yeah. And when you
Yeah.
started volunteering there in high school, what were you doing?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Serving coffee,
Yeah,
visiting,
yeah.
playing euchre,
Yeah.
winning at euchre.
Yeah. So tell me about Capital City Mission.
Yeah, so we started in 2000 in Ottawa's Lower Town.
Yeah.
And Timothy, our founder, he had been a pastor. He still really is a pastor. He's now the chaplain at the Ottawa Mission.
That's right, yes.
But yeah, he had a heart for, he would describe it as incarnational ministry. So, when Jesus came, he moved into the neighborhood. He showed up, got gritty with people. And Tim felt called kind of to do that in our city.
Yeah.
He was really motivated by Matthew 25. And, whenever you serve and do for others, Jesus is showing up there and you're meeting the face of Jesus in another person. And so that's something that we try to do still on a daily basis. It's just
I remember the first time I met Tim, it was at Capital City Mission, the first time I had actually ever gone there. Now, this has got to be, I would say probably 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And him and I sat in the basement.
Yeah.
He was giving us a tour, and I sat in the basement with him.
It's a really glamorous office.
Yeah. Okay, so you know what I mean. Yeah. And we ended up talking for like 45 minutes, just him and I.
Nice.
And I just remember feeling that connection with him, and he's such a wonderful man. Anyway, so how long has Capital City Mission been in operation in Ottawa?
Yeah, so we opened our doors in 2000.
Yeah.
So just over 20 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah, and so I've been there 16 of those 20 years, and my coworker Matthew, he was off doing some things in the middle, but he's probably got about 11 or 12 years with Capital City Mission now, so a lot of deep connections.
Yeah. So why do you work there?
Why do I work there?
Yeah.
Because of the friendships. Yeah, I think, I started, as I said, just out of high school, being really motivated to do justice. And I mean, that's a good motivation, but definitely I'm there now because of relationships, because of friendships. It's a place of belonging for me as well.
Oh, beautiful. beautiful community, right? One of the things that you and I talked about in our pre-show chat was you had said to me, Capital City Mission is a safe place for people to go.
Yeah.
And one of the things you said to me was there are no safe places for people who are in the shelter system or in community housing. And this was kind of the response to that. So what makes it a safe place for people?
Yeah, I'll maybe clarify what I said too. It's not that there's no safe spaces in shelters. I think that people do find a safe place in many shelters, and some people also find a real home base there that they've never found somewhere else. And likewise, in community housing, there's a roof over your head. There's some good things happening. But as an individual, if you're in a situation where you don't feel safe in either of those contexts, or if you're sleeping rough outdoors, you don't necessarily have a felt safety much of the time in your life. And we need places of safety to feel okay, to actually heal our nervous system, because without safety, you're just always in fight or flight and
survival mode.
Exactly. And so at Capital City Mission, we just try to create a safe place where people can come on a daily basis. They can check in. They know that somebody's gonna know what's going on in their life. If they've shared it with us, they can come back and check in. They know that somebody, if there's a conflict, that staff is going to step in and deal with that. And so, my job in those conflicts is not to try to mediate behavior so much as let the people know you're actually safe in this place. And if something happens, I'm going to step in so you don't have to step in. And so by creating places of safety, we allow people to find rest. We allow people to dig into some of the deeper things going on in their life that they might not have the space to do if they're just kind of always, like you said, in kind of survival mode.
And survival mode is exhausting, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so I like that because the safe that safe place addresses a bunch of needs, right? It's a physical need, an emotional need, and a spiritual need to feel safe. Because especially if you're living on the streets, you don't have that, and you need a place to go where you can get that. Yeah. One of the other things that you and I were talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you said, I totally reject the notion of loitering.
Yes. Yeah, I do. I mean...
Explain that to me and to everybody.
Yeah, I guess you just picked up on the weirdest thing I said to you. So I guess to explain that, probably need to give a bit of context, but... I mean, overall, at Capital City Mission, we've been, on Rideau Street within 3 blocks for the last 20 years. We've moved 3 times, but always within kind of 3 blocks.
Radius, yeah.
And we have a really pretty supportive community. There's neighbors in Sandy Hill that make us cookies every week, and there's just lots of really great community support in that area.
And relational support.
Yeah. But, over the years, at times also you hear, somebody's complaining about, somebody loitering.
Yeah.
But I think the sidewalk, benches, these are social places. You can't loiter in a space that is created to foster social life, right?
Yeah.
And, I've had opportunities to also say, well, the person you're worried about, crowding because Capital City Mission here actually lives 1 block down from you in that high rise. Yeah. So, that's your neighbor. This is your neighbor, and this is where they hang out. And we need more places where people feel welcome indoors in our city. But certainly the street and the sidewalk and the park bench is not a place for loitering. It's for having social space, having contact. Yeah.
Do you think we have enough spaces like that in our city?
Outdoor, indoor. I mean, no, but it's less about having the space and more how people feel welcomed into spaces. So, as things change in a neighborhood,
Yeah.
sometimes people feel less welcome
Yeah.
on that social landscape.
Yeah.
And so we need to work hard to make sure that everyone still feels welcome. Like
Yeah.
for us at Capital City Mission, Rideau Street is changing a lot right now. There's
Yes.
3 major condo
I
developments
couldn't
going
believe
in.
when we came by to visit, that was at the beginning of the summer,
Yeah.
and I hadn't been down on Rideau in a bit of time because of COVID and whatnot, and I could not believe. I was looking around like, when did all this happen?
Yeah. And so, we're seeing big changes on the street.
Yeah.
And so we need to work hard to make sure that everyone's still feeling welcome on the street, and that everyone, our tagline kind of is this idea of love thy neighborhood.
Yeah.
And for us, it's about, bringing the whole community into a neighborhood and making the folks that are about to move into the condo love what we're doing on the corner and also want to come by for a coffee. Like, I love when somebody comes in, orders a coffee, and then asks how much it is.
Yeah.
I love explaining to them that actually it's free.
Yeah.
And would you like a sandwich?
Yeah.
The look on their face is great.
Yeah.
And so to have more opportunities to just bring everyone in that neighborhood together.
So how do you try to foster those relationships with your neighbors?
With all neighbors, yeah. I think just by being friendly, by being welcoming. People living on their own in a bachelor apartment that's fancy also need community.
Yeah, of course. We all need community, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I loved the tagline that you say, "We're love thy neighborhood," and it really makes me think of community and why community is so important. So when I say the word community to you, what does community mean?
It's everything.
It's everything. Yeah.
It means, I guess, again, the first word that comes up is a place of a safety, a place to be yourself.
Yeah.
People that know your name, people that want to hear your story.
Yeah.
People you go to when you're having a terrible day.
Yes.
People that you go to when you're really excited that you just got in for that appointment that you needed, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
It's having people around you that care what happens day to day.
Do you think that we can do life without community?
Not in healthy ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we talk a lot about community at Jericho, and I always say that isolation is a killer, especially if you're suffering from a substance use disorder or a mental health issue. Isolation just kills us, right? And so we need community, but more so, I think community is very relational. Mm-hmm. And how do you find managing all those relations working at Capital City? Mm-hmm. Do you find it exhausting some days, or?
Yeah, I have my days. I was joking with you earlier. An hour is going to be a long time for me to talk. I'm sort of an introvert, so for sure, some days I'm tired at the end of a day.
Yeah.
But as I said, I've been there such a long time that you kind of just people know when I'm not having a good day. I'm allowed to not have a good day also.
Yes.
And that's the grace of being in community, I think.
Yeah.
So I guess the question was, how do I manage community? And I would say that kind of as an organization, again, it's a place, and it's a place of, I keep repeating it, but a place of safety. And when people sit down at a table with another individual and they know they're safe, those two strangers can start building a friendship and a relationship. Yeah. And so I get to witness some really quirky friends, right?
Yeah.
Like a young guy in his 20s and then a 70-year-old woman becoming kindred friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because they've found a safe place to do life together. And so that's the blessing of being there for so many years. You get to witness.
Well, and that's what I was thinking, right? When we were talking, that you've been there, I was going to say for such a long time, but it is a long time. And so you must have a lot of relationships with people in your community that have been extended relationships because you've been there for so long. Mm-hmm. Do you find that tough?
I find it great.
Yeah?
Yeah. And I mean, we have people, I got a call today, from someone that doesn't live in Ottawa anymore, but they're still calling and checking in, and we're still, good friends. I talked to a social worker for someone that moved out of our city, and they wanted me to be part of a meeting this person was going to have. And, I finished the call and just, anything you need at any time, just, call. And she was sort of surprised by that. And I said, I really love the guy.
Yeah.
And, for her to hear that, I could hear the excitement when she was like, oh, wow, that's great. Right. To know that people have support.
Well, it's
encouraging
that,
to her too.
And you've built trust with them.
Yeah.
Right. Which is major in any type of relationship and community. And we see a lot of that in the recovery community. And I think the relationships that get fostered are so strong because we know that there's that strong element of trust that we've been there. We know what's going on, and we felt it before, and so you're able to build that trust, which I think is really essential. You and I had talked about, and I know I had prepared you for this, that I wanted you to tell us a story of, because when I had called you for our pre-show interview, you had a rough day. You were with one of your clients, and you were dealing with a dog.
Yeah. So one of my friends. So we tend not to use the word client because in our context, it's not a service kind of relationship. And there's nothing wrong with the word, but in our context, it's not the word that we use. And this person is a really close friend, and I've probably known him close to the length of time I've been at Capital City Mission. And his dog was sick, and he phoned me. I was still at the drop-in, so I went, by his apartment and ended up spending, the rest of that evening at an emergency vet. And we ended up having to put down his dog. And his dog was really a community mascot for us. Like this, everyone in our community loved this dog. And so to be part of that moment with him is like really painful, but it's also very meaningful to share, those difficult moments in people's lives with them as well. And I think that's kind of part of the particular opportunity that we have at Capital City Mission. We don't have, typical social service work that happens on site. Like, that's super important, and we direct people to the services that are available in town and, help them find those things. But because we're so much just about relationship and relationship over time, as we get to know individual particular needs, we get to meet those in individual particular ways. Yeah. And so obviously I'm not able to go to every vet appointment with folks in the city. Yeah. But because I've had this friendship, for 15 years, the vet appointment is super meaningful to me as well. Yeah. And so that's kind of, I think, the value of having, people committed to just being there year after year and part of the community. And yeah.
Was it a tough day?
Yeah, for sure. It was a tough day. Yeah.
So
I have a dog too. So I think she'll never die. That's what I'm hoping. But so for sure, it was a tough night. But I'm glad I was there.
Yeah, because after you and I talked, I'm a dog person myself, and so I remember it just brought back instant memories to myself of having to put down a family dog, and I was like, oh my goodness, Keltie.
Yeah, dogs are so important to people.
Oh yeah, yeah. And they also help foster relationships too, right?
Yeah.
As you were saying, the dog was a community mascot for these.
Our friend came the next day to the drop-in and shared his news with everyone, and was super well supported by everyone in the community. One of our ladies rode a car that everyone saw. People really care for each other, and so.
So that brings me back to kind of what we touched on at the beginning of this conversation. So, what do you do to how do you pour back into yourself? How do you stay full?
How do I stay full?
And I ask everybody this question
Yeah.
because we're all
Yeah.
doing stuff where we're pouring out into people,
Yeah.
and so we need to be poured back into, and we need
Yeah.
to do things to keep ourselves healthy, right?
Yep.
And I don't, I mean, I don't want to get too personal, but I'm
No,
just
no, that's
curious,
okay. I'm happy
like
to answer.
what you do to pour back into yourself so that you can be there for people.
Yeah. I think, in different seasons, obviously it happens differently, and
Yeah.
sometimes it happens better than other times. And, usually by spring, I'm kind of in a low spot, and
Yeah.
summer helps. And, but yeah, definitely having people to talk to about what's going on is super important. And then I think that, as I said, like in our community, I'm a member of the community, and I'm also allowed to have a bad or a hard day, which actually you're not allowed to do in most jobs, right?
Yeah.
Like, I go to therapy, and early on, I was kind of like, I don't know the rules of therapy. I'm not used to just talking to someone and them not talking to me. Like, can I ask you how your week was?
Yeah.
And she said, well, you can ask me, but I'm always going to say good.
Yeah.
Right. So she's never going to share that hurt back with me.
That's right.
But, this winter, we lost a few super important members in our community, and 3 specifically that were really important to me and really have been important to me for, 10 years or more.
Yeah.
And the death of my friend Mary hit me super, super hard. I was with her as she passed. And again, it's a really meaningful life moment, but really painful.
Yeah.
But I'm able to bring that to work with me. I'm able to tell my friends in our community that I'm going through this and I'm cared for also.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge part of sticking it out for 15 years is you're part of it.
And I ask, like I said at the beginning, because we're all in this together, right? And we all experience these things, and we experienced a loss at Jericho in the last month as well, and someone who had gone through our program and got on the right path of recovery and was doing really well, and then got out of community and started getting off that path, and so we were very touched because what we were talking about before with trust, and he trusted us enough to reach out to us and say, I need help. And so he was supposed to come back into the program, but ended up overdosing.
That's so heartbreaking.
It is, right? And so we especially here at Jericho, the staff lean on each other tremendously because we're all in this together, and we all understand, and I hate saying it, but it's the realities of the mission work that we're doing. And I hate saying that because it sounds cold, but it is a reality, right? We're dealing with people who are sometimes battling for their life, and there's going to be situations that happen that aren't good, and so we gotta support one another, and a lot of times too, it's a matter of helping each other process it, right? And so that's why I asked that question of you, because I kind of was making sure that the staff were okay and that we were talking about it and dealing with it, but I didn't really process it too well, and it wasn't until I was having a board meeting and they asked me, and I broke down, and I started bawling my eyes out, and I'm like, what is going on here, right? And so it's really important that I think that we understand that, and that we pour into each other and find ways to keep our tanks full, because the work we do can be draining. Yeah. It's tough. Not every day's a good day, right? Yeah. How do we keep connected? like I remember in their interview, our pre-interview, you said, it's great to see that strangers turn into friends, and the community becomes that much stronger when that happens. So how do we keep fostering relationships in community?
I think it's going to look a little bit different in every context.
Yeah.
For you guys here, you get to create like a really beautiful community within the houses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then your goal from there is to connect people to more and more community.
Mm-hmm.
So there's strong relationships,
Mm-hmm.
whether they are, Moving to Bardhaven next or Cumberland or wherever, that there's still those places of connection.
How do you?
And for us, for us at the drop-in, a big part is having, the consistency of staff over years, the consistency of volunteers over many years, because different individuals are just naturally, someone's going to connect better with me, someone's going to connect better with my coworker Matthew, someone with Pam, someone with Jenna, and that's a really good thing. And so again, how we meet that person's need is going to depend on who they connect best with. And I think, just creating places for opportunities to connect is super important.
And why do you think your volunteers stay for so long? Because they do.
Yeah.
No, really. It's the people that I know that volunteer at Capital City Mission have been doing it a long time.
Mm-hmm.
What's in the secret sauce at Capital City Mission that keeps volunteers there for so long?
It's really just friendship.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even, when somebody comes in to volunteer for the first time, they're blessed by the hospitality of a community of people that just welcomes you. I mean, I never get the experience of walking into a coffee shop, just sitting down at a random table with a random person at the coffee shop and striking up conversation.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much we could learn about community by just coming to have a coffee at the drop-in. And that's something actually I've been encouraging too in recent years. There was a university group that started, students would come by and they couldn't necessarily commit to volunteering. And so they just started dropping in like everybody else. And it was awesome. And so I totally encourage anyone. I almost prefer it, just drop in and have a coffee and start doing that weekly, and, relationships.
And see what grows out of it. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, that's fabulous. One of the things that we had touched on was, especially because where you're located in the downtown core, next week is Recovery Week all across Canada, and there's Recovery Day in Ottawa. And one of the big things with Recovery Day in Ottawa is ending the stigma of addiction in our community. And so how do you see the stigma of addiction in your community?
I mean, I think you see it through the idea of loitering, in a sense, not recognizing that open social spaces are open social spaces for everybody. That would be one way.
Do you think that especially where you're located, and I mean we've experienced it at Jericho as well, the NIMBY, not in my backyard, and how do you confront NIMBY?
I think through explaining these are your neighbors. There's people have a right to be here. Just like you have a right to be here. And I think through my coworker Matthew, I feel like is very good at it. He just, he's really polite. He connects with people. He shares his stories. And, did you know we've been here for 20 years? Did you know that, and you share the good stuff also. And, I live super close to Shepherds of Good Hope, and they're hoping to put a new building in that's supportive housing. And I think an initiative like that is like so important,
Yeah.
going to do so much good for the neighborhood.
Yeah.
But of course, like, I'm seeing neighbors complain about it and this and that. But I think you really just combat that by sharing the good news stories of it. And I mean, I think with that building especially, like, it's only good news.
Yeah, especially in that community, right? Yeah. One of the things that I know is that a lot of stigma comes from either lack of information or misinformation. And
For sure.
And do you think that as a society, as a community, we are good at keeping people either informed or trying or a level of understanding as to what addiction is? Because I know that it touches all of our lives, but a lot for both of our ministries, right? We deal with a lot of people with substance use disorders and mental health issues. And so I guess what I'm trying to ask is, I'll try to get this correct. Do you think we're doing a good enough job to inform people on the understanding of substance use disorders and mental health, so that we don't encounter those problems?
I think that certain things are, moving in a really positive direction.
Yeah.
Even in terms of shelters building, supportive housing buildings, and recognizing that, people need extra supports for certain things, and that we need to support people at different stages of, addiction or recovery, and that, we need to meet people where they are and not just say kind of abstinence is the only answer. I've been doing from my own, like my own experience has led me to do a lot of reading.
Yeah.
And, I've been reading on trauma and, neuroscience, and so much of addiction is linked to trauma. And people, I think, have the misconception that it's just a choice that somebody's made and they keep making bad choices. But trauma actually changes the types of choices that you can make. And going back to talking about, living in recovery mode,
in survival mode.
Yeah, thank you. This idea of living in survival mode. Your options aren't actually the same as what my options are. And I think if we can sort of help people start to realize that these things aren't about one choice, and actually that someone's addiction can even be the thing that was saving them at a certain point, because something needed to be numbed for them, because it was so desperate and so terrible.
With the trauma, the adverse childhood experiences, and all that stuff. And that's funny, because I thought about that after you and I had talked. I always like to say, I made a lot of really poor, horrible choices because of my addiction. I didn't make a whole bunch of horrible, bad choices to lead me to my addiction. It's in fact the other way around, right? And so one of the things that I had written down in my notes was, you had said, once someone finds housing is when they need the most support. Yeah. And I agree totally. So why did you say that?
I think I was speaking to a movie that you and I had both watched. It's on.
Yes. It was
Jonathan?
by the Compassion Project. It was by
The Wisdom
of
of Trauma.
Trauma. Yes.
Trauma. Yeah, with Dr. Gabor Mate.
Yeah.
But in that film, one thing that stood out to me the most was, a housing worker. She was sharing that, as she supports people in new housing situations, this is when so much of that trauma is coming back up for them, because in survival mode, you're just dealing with kind of the next thing.
That's right.
But now they have this safe space. But if they don't have support in the safe space, being alone with yourself can become overwhelming.
Of course.
Being alone with my own self becomes overwhelming. And so it's in those transitions that we also need to be supporting
Yeah.
people.
And as I say, I totally agree because, you know, housing initiatives are really great, but there's if you're not going to give the supports behind those housing initiatives, there's no point. You know, and I remember watching on CTV News one of the housing initiatives by the city of Ottawa, and they had gotten a gentleman off the street and put him into an apartment, and they were paying the landlord so that he could live there, but he had no supports, so he didn't know how to do his laundry. He didn't know how to cook. He didn't know how to start dealing with being sober. And he had no supports around him, and so
And he's also not necessarily going to be working with a good landlord.
exactly, and so it just turned into, pardon my language, a horrible shit show, right? And so when you had said that, it really resonated with me because we have to be there for the long run, right? We have to do the long haul. And so if we're not giving those supports, it's not going to work, right? And so as leaders in our community, leaders, you and me, and all the other great missions and great agencies in this city, what can we do for one another? Do you think to make things work a bit better?
Yeah, well, for an organization like us, like as I said, you know, my role is to be a friend, be a support, go to an appointment with someone if that appointment is too stressful to go to by themselves, or, you know, things like that. But I'm not a social worker, so I need to know what centers do have a social worker, or I need to know what place has a housing worker that I can just phone and make those calls. So I think that being connected with each other in ways that we know what other people are up to is super helpful.
The sharing of information.
Yeah.
I remember when we had someone at Jericho and they were on Ontario Disability and they needed some dental work done, and trying to find a dentist who took people on ODSP, and I didn't realize the chore that was. Now, this was many years ago when I just started at Jericho, but I was shocked. I was like, is there not a list somewhere that, you know? No.
Yeah.
It was picking up the phone and calling dentists in a 20-block area to see if any of them took people who are on ODSP, you know? And so I think that one of the things that I really... I'm really excited about, especially with this podcast, is getting us connected. And one of the things is to share that information. Because I'm sure I'm not the only one who's tried to find a dentist for someone who's on ODSP, right? So why, if someone's already done that or knows dentists who take people who are on disability, then why am I trying to reinvent the wheel if they already know who's doing it and who's not doing it?
Yeah.
Right?
And we talked about this the other day too, but likewise with volunteering. You know, lots of people want to volunteer, but maybe my organization doesn't have the right fit for them. But if I know about all of the other organizations, I can say, well, this might not work, but, you know, maybe OIM would be a good fit because you really want to do street outreach, or, oh, you're like really excited about working with young people. Then, you know, talk to Restoring Hope. And so I think the more we know about each other, the more that we can kind of make connections in all sorts of ways.
Yeah. And build trust with one another, right? Because I always say there's nothing proprietary about what we're doing, right? There's no secret manual that you don't want the other person to have. I think we all should be sharing each other's manual, right? Because we're all just going to benefit from it. What's your biggest need at Capital City Mission right now?
More space.
More.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why?
I mean, with COVID especially, we're just we're pretty pushed for space and doing a lot out of a small space. You mentioned kind of that basement office, but it's also our prep kitchen and our storage room for socks and toques. And, but yeah.
if you could have one wish granted tomorrow to help out Capital City Mission, aside from more space, what would it be?
More sandwich makers.
More sandwich makers?
Yeah.
How many lunches are you giving out a week? I don't like to talk numbers, but I'm just curious.
Daily, probably 100, 120.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you've made a few sandwiches in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've always had super great volunteer support, and that's how we've managed for 20 years.
Yeah.
And, COVID has changed the volunteer scene a lot for us.
Yes.
And we're excited that that's going to get back up and going again. But
aren't we also?
It's slow, right?
Yeah.
And so, but we've also hired some extra staff in the last year, and they've been awesome. So we've been able to make stuff work. But
so what did you do during
lots
COVID?
of juggling. What did we do?
Yeah. What did you? I hate using this word. Pivot.
How did we operate?
How did
we pivot?
How did you?
We're actually super fortunate. Our building on Rideau Street, we had a kitchen window that opened right to the sidewalk.
Beautiful.
Our building is one of kind of 7 units similar.
Yeah.
We're the only one that had this window.
Yeah.
So we were in the right place for sure. But we've been able to operate throughout as a canteen. And talking about isolation earlier, when COVID hit, we knew, even if people can't come indoors right now, I need to be able to see people, make eye contact on a daily basis, check in.
Yeah.
And so we're really grateful that we were able to stay open throughout.
Excellent.
And then in the winter months, we rented a second unit to be able to have safe indoor visiting, no food. So we did have kind of extra space through the winter, and we're now kind of slowly getting back into our space again.
Are you?
So,
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Again, no food and drink still.
Yeah.
But food's outside.
Yeah.
Inside for visiting, stuff like that. Yeah.
Fabulous. Yeah. Because the isolation has been a killer, right? Especially for people with substance use disorders, and isolation's a killer. I can't say it enough on this podcast that I firmly believe that we're designed to live in community, that God has designed us to live in community and support one another. And so when you take those supports away, it's just, it leads to nothing but me and myself and I. And then
if you don't have a computer or a cell phone, 2-week lockdown looks very, very different.
Oh, of course, right? Yeah. Wow. I don't know what to say, but I do want to say, as a person and as someone in a ministry, I'm very grateful for Capital City Mission, and I think you guys do a fabulous job, and you're in the trenches, and being in the trenches is a tough thing to do. So I admire that. I really do, and keep doing what you're doing. And I hope that, I know that our relationship is going to continue.
You're stuck with me.
I know.
We got to start planning Coldest Night.
I knew the plug was going to come, right? I kept saying to myself, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to see if Keltie says it. Yeah, Coldest Night of the year. We're going to go to question and answer time, my favorite part.
Do you want to do announcements, thanking?
Do I want to do announcements first?
Or do you want to do that after?
Let's do it after. Let's do the question and answer. We're on a roll.
Sure. So I have a question for Keltie. So when you were talking about that switch in the beginning from just working there, that social service kind of go-getter thing, to friendship, how did that switch look, and what inspired that? Like, just time with the clients? Was it time well spent? Was it like where did you see that conscious shift in your brain to, these are not clients, these are friends?
Yeah, I think probably pretty fast. I can't look at you. I would say that happened pretty fast in terms of, Timothy would always, first day volunteering there, Tim would say, only thing you need to know is there's no us and them. And I think that's absolutely 100% true. And if you talk to anyone for 2 minutes, you know that.
I love that line.
And so, yeah, I think the friendships came pretty fast. People were super welcoming to me. Well,
what's not to like?
This one, Ruben, I'll bring her up by name, but Ruby, she was kind of one of the hearts of our community for many years before she passed away. But, she gave me purple slippers for my birthday the first year I was volunteering there. And, just things like that. The friendships come fast. And so I think, the switch comes fast too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We notice that here a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
Like within, it's just a very short time period. It's your friends, and especially, for us with dealing with substance use disorders and that it's most of our staff have lived experience, and so there's no us and them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just us, right? We've all gone through this.
Yeah. Actually, most of my friends in our community, if they listen to this podcast, they'll just kind of be like, why did you have to spend an hour talking about friendship? Like, why are you even talking about that?
Yeah. Yeah. That's okay. It's my show.
No, but I just mean it's natural. It's not a thing that we try to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that speaks volumes to the fact of how organizations can learn from, places like Capital City Mission and recognize that, this isn't something that we have to consciously do. We should be intentional about this regardless, right? Like being intentional about those relationships, about those, if you want to elaborate a little bit on that, right? It's why did we have to talk about it, right? Why is there a gap in that? Why is there a need to talk about?
Because we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think, the average person, I'll put myself as an average person and everyone else is an average person, but we go, through life in our own little silos. And like I said, we don't always have a lot of opportunities to break out of our silo and into a new context. And I think that's why people enjoy being at Capital City Mission so much, because it's different than the way we live in siloed ways normally.
And that's to me, that's what society is guiding us to, is living in the silos. I don't need to leave my apartment. I got the internet. I got my big screen TV. I have my cell phone. Why do I need to go out? Why do I need to be a part of community? And it's those intentional relationships that we miss, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Any other questions, John?
From Kate Saunderson.
Oh,
hi,
Kate.
Oh, and before I forget, Fern says hello.
Hi, Fern.
Hi, Fern. Who's Fern?
He's my buddy.
Okay.
And so Kate asks, what do you think the gaps in services are in Ottawa, and what do your friends need the most that they aren't getting?
What are the biggest gaps
Yeah.
in our I hate to use the word system in Ottawa?
So, Kate, I thought Kevin was going to ask me this question, and then he didn't. So I thought I got away without answering it. So thank you very much.
Because and why didn't I ask you the question?
Well, because maybe you knew my response was going to be, you should talk to Katie about this in your next podcast, because that is what she does. She learns these things and she advocates.
Yeah.
And,
But
her role is to,
from your point of view, this is not a blame game, just from your point of view, what do you think there's a lack of in our services? Let me rephrase this. If you could start another ministry tomorrow that needs to fill a gap, what would it be?
It would probably be greater mental health support.
Bingo.
And we have some great starts to that sort of thing. And we just need kind of more of that.
Yep.
And, I know lots of people that have kind of a mental health support worker, and those guys are doing great work, but they can't necessarily check in with that person every day, like they
Yeah.
check in at the drop-in every
Yes.
day.
Yeah.
So to be able to be more intentional mental health support
Yeah.
in our community would be huge.
Well, I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And what was the second half of that question from Kate, John?
What do your friends need the most that they aren't getting?
Yeah, I think I would say that support in transition times. Some people are housed, but it's precarious
Yeah.
and they're at risk of eviction.
Yeah.
And what do you do in that moment? And there are, some things you can connect with, and truly I need to learn more about that to be able to help support people better in those transition times. But yeah, I think support in those transition times is really important, whether it's from shelter into an apartment or if you're in an apartment and there's risk of eviction,
Yeah.
or, you're in an apartment, but you get moved across town to another apartment. All of a sudden you're starting over with community and
Which happens in community housing, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes they want that move
Yeah.
because they're living in a context that's really
That's not
difficult to be
healthy
living
for
in.
them. Yeah. Yeah.
And so you get this move, and the move is a good thing, but it's still hard to then kind of start over
Yeah.
in that new context, just like it's hard for anyone who's moving, right? You
And
got to
get
start
those
over with
supports that
community.
we were talking about earlier, right? You have to restart that whole process again.
Yeah.
Because I know from a lot of our men that are in second stage and as they go from our continuing care into independent living, how difficult it is to find affordable housing.
Yeah. It's really
Good
terrible in
golly.
Ottawa right now.
Yeah.
It's really hard to if you have money, it's hard to find rent in Ottawa.
Yeah.
It's just
Because
it's
we
crushing.
assist them in that process, and I've been very fortunate that I really haven't had to really take a good hard look at what is the availability of housing in Ottawa and what the prices are. But as I've been walking through this with a couple of the men recently, I'm kind of flabbergasted at what rents are in this city.
Yeah, rent's really high and it's competitive. So if you can't show up to an appointment
And have first and last,
month's
yeah.
rent in your hand
Yeah.
and say, I want this apartment right now,
Yeah,
it's just so competitive. Yeah.
yeah, and defeating,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And like I said before, I am really encouraged by some of these supportive housing kind of,
Initiatives.
not a shelter, but
yeah.
supportive housing
Yeah.
buildings that shelters are doing. That's a super good transition, and I would just love to see way, way more of that.
Yeah, because we know it works.
Yeah.
We know it works, and yeah, excellent. Any other questions, John?
Yeah, we have a question from Nicole Chan.
Nicole.
What's been the most surprising thing that has happened at CCM as a result of the pandemic?
Can I put some Jeopardy music on?
Yeah,
Ding,
you're going to have to
ding,
play
ding,
some background
ding.
music. The most surprising... I don't know what I would say is the most surprising. The least surprising is that our community has supported each other really well.
Yep.
And, people come to the window and they say, I haven't seen so-and-so in a few days. Can you check on them? Or so-and-so is in isolation. Can you make sure they're getting groceries? And so I feel like, yeah, it's the least surprising. But our community is trying to take good care of each other. And something good that has come out of it. So not necessarily surprising, but I feel like I'm more connected to other organizations as a result of us all trying to figure out how to do life differently, especially in the beginning months. So yeah, I was surprised to be pulled into some conversations with organizations that I haven't had a chance to be in connection with before.
I agree with you, because I think I've had more conversations with other ministries and other agencies in this city in the past year and a half than I have in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sense of community really came out.
Yeah. And how do we keep that up is your question.
Yeah. Because nothing but good is coming from it.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing but good is coming from it. So let's not stop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions, John? We're good. A few end of show announcements.
Make mention to Keltie's website.
Oh, yes, Keltie's website, capitalcitymission.com. Usually I go www.capitalcitymission.com. Go and see their website. Donate, volunteer, help us all out. Reminder to share and stream our upcoming episodes, and we're really looking forward to the Voices of Recovery in the middle of our monthly podcast. So it's going to be bi-weekly. And don't forget, you can, in a week, John, in about a week's time, you can go to your favorite podcast platform, Spotify, Google, whatever it is, and listen to our podcast in case you wanted to share it or re-listen to it again, because John does a few edits sometimes to make me sound a little better.
If you're rewatching this on YouTube, they wouldn't let me look at the camera. I apologize.
What's this we?
Jonathan wouldn't let me.
Thank you. Let's get that straight. I guess there's nothing more to say, but Keltie, thank you very much.
Great to be here,
And we just enjoy having you visit us. And I know, it's been hard lately because of what's going on, but we just love what you guys are doing, and I hope that our relationship continues for many more years to come. And so
likewise.
now can we plug it?
Coldest night of the year, this February.
What's the date, John? February?
I don't know.
20-something.
Okay. You'll know. We'll as we get up to it, we'll make sure you know. Yeah. So thank you, Keltie.
Great to be here.
God bless you, and we'll talk to you soon. Oh, bye everyone. Bye. We can wave. Thank you for joining us. Love you all.